Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to when the female Kemp's Ridley crawls up onto the beach. When the turtle crawls up on the beach, and this is something that's unique about Kemp's Ridley, it's the smallest sea turtle in the world, and it's also the only one that nests primarily in the daytime. And these are two of the things that may have led to its decline more rapidly than perhaps other species of sea turtles, because when we first began going to Rancho Nuevo in the early 1970s, you had to walk the 13-kilometer cattle trail through the forest, and it was fairly thick forest, and in that forest were jaguars and ocelots and ornate hawk eagles and tropical rattlesnakes and all sorts of things. It was a totally wild place, and the beach was a totally wild place. And I'm sure that historically, just like in other parts of Mexico, jaguars preyed on the adult turtles. And for that reason, people who didn't have flashlights weren't out walking around on the beaches at night, so they weren't impacting green sea turtles, which nest at night, loggerheads, which nest at night, occasional hawksbills, or even leatherbacks, because the people just weren't out on the beach at night. It was a scary place to be with all the wild animals that were out there. But the poor little Kemp's Ridley, at 65 to 85 pounds, typically, one man can pick that up and carry it back to the village. And they're easy to find because they're nesting in the daytime. And in those early years, the local people taught us that you only need to go out on the beach to look for the turtles nesting on days when the wind is blowing so strong that you don't want to be on the beach. Because apparently over the millennia, the turtles evolved a reproductive strategy to come out of the water in the daytime on days that would be the most difficult for predators. Blowing sand, I'm talking about gale force winds. And the other thing that does, the turtle being a heavy animal and leaving deep tracks and digging a nest and covering it up, the blowing wind tends to obscure the nest site and the odors from the nest site very quickly. So it was advantageous for these turtles to have evolved that behavior of coming up on very windy days. I remember walking the beach at Rancho Nuevo for sometimes 2 weeks in a row and not seeing anything other than crabs and the occasional gulls or frigate birds out over the water and no turtles. But if a gale force wind came up, particularly from the southeast, not only did the turtles come up, but so did the local villagers. They'd be on their horses and they'd have bags on their saddlebags, and they'd have dogs which were trained to sniff out the nests. So the local people over the millennia had learned the same conditions that typically brought the Kemp's Ridley out, so they knew when to go out and look for them.